So what excites you about soap making? What's that thing that draws you toward this and makes you think, gosh, this would be so much fun? Is it knowing that you're making a product that's great for your skin? Is it knowing that that you would have the ability to know exactly what is in your products and not have to trust someone else put great ingredients in this? Or is it trying to find like things that are more chemical free to help you get more chemical free in your house? Chances are it's all of these things to some extent. But the thing that we hear people ask all the time that gets them excited about soap making is the colors. We hear this question all the time. How do you get the colors in the soap? And how do you get those fun designs? Well, grab a coffee or whatever your drink choice preference is, and let's chat about colorants in soap making. There are several types of products that could be used to color your soap. But in this video, we're dealing with cold process soap making or making lye soap. There are different colorants that you would use if you're doing melt and pour. So that's a different process, and know that if you're looking to color that kind of soap, you'll need to do some additional research. But colorants for cold process soap. First, let's talk about micas. So micas here are just really like shimmery, iridescent, shiny, bright colorants. And they maintain their shimmeriness when you mix them in oils. I'm going to try to show you just like a little bit in this colorant without dumping blue all over my desk. Kind of. There we go. But micas can be naturally harvested or they can be synthetically created. And your brighter colored ones are going to be the ones that are synthetic. But the effect in coloring is the same. But be aware that not all mica colorants are the same. Beginning soap makers can get really frustrated when they use a mica colorant and then the effect just isn't what they were expecting. Be sure that when you're first starting out that you purchase your mica colorants from a reputable soap making supply store or website. Others may not stay true to color in cold process soap making, and then that's just frustrating. Also remember that if you're adding a small amount of colorant to kind of a largish amount of soap batter, that the color is going to be more and more diluted the more soap batter you're adding it to. So for example, if you bought a hot pink mica colorant and it was a really bold color, in the container and in the cup when you premix, but you pour it into kind of a biggish amount of soap batter, you're going to end up with kind of a light pink soap batter because there's only so much colorant to go around. So just remember, if you want the color to be darker, you're just going to need to add more colorant to it. Oxides are a different kind of colorant. They are a stronger, there's another powdered colorant, but they're a stronger, like more intense kind of color. There are less color options than there are with micas, but you will need less of the colorant to get the effect that you're looking for. They require a little bit more care when you're preparing them. And we're going to talk in just a minute about pre-mixing your colorants and how you're going to use them to get them to mix into your soap batter nicely. They require a little bit more care because when you're stirring them into the oil, they tend to clump up a little bit. So you just have to work at them a little bit harder to get them mixed in, but they provide a nice, bold, strong color that transfers nicely into your soap batter. Both micas and oxides come as a powdered colorant, and they both require premixing before using them in your cold process soap making. There's a couple of reasons for this. One, it takes some work to get the powdered colorant to mix in smoothly. You can do some of that work in advance by mixing it, blending it into a lightweight oil like sunflower oil. This just allows you to get the colorant into liquid form, which is going to mix into your soap much more smoothly. It also helps you avoid any like colorant clumps or something in your soap after the fact because you didn't have it all the way mixed together into a liquid. So it just helps you avoid those things. Second, if you remember, if you're blending your soap batter, the more you blend it, the thicker it's going to be. And if you have to blend for a long time to get a powdered colorant like mixed through the soap batter, you might find yourself in a spot where the batter is thicker than you really wanted it to be, and you don't quite have the colorant mixed all the way in. So giving that colorant a little bit of a head start by mixing it into sunflower oil and just getting it to a kind of a liquid form that's kind of this consistency of paint, that really helps give you a jump start and increases the possibility that your colorants are going to mix in nice and smoothly into your soap batter. So how much colorant can you use in your soap batter? Here's the rule of thumb for mixing your colorants and for then putting it into the soap batter. If you can have 1 teaspoon of colorant, you will need 1 tablespoon of oil, your lightweight oil, your sunflower oil, to mix that and to make it into liquid form. And then the 1 teaspoon of colorant in the 1 tablespoon of sunflower oil will color 1 pound of soap. So if your batch makes like a 3-pound mold of soap, you can use 3 teaspoons of colorant total in that entire batch. Now, maybe that's like 1 teaspoon of 3 different colors. Maybe it's 3 teaspoons of 1 color, but the total amount of colorant in teaspoons has to equal the number of pounds of soap that you are making. Now, one color where we see this mistake made most frequently is with titanium dioxide. Titanium dioxide is a super common white colorant, and it can be pre-mixed with either oil or water, but you're going to want to watch your usage amount. The amount is the same with titanium dioxide as it is with any other colorant. The issue is that the soap batter can only hold on to so much colorant, but people come into soap making and they want to make a really white soap. And the problem there is a milk soap isn't going to go white very easily. It likes to stay a nice cream color. Well, if your thought in your mind is, I want a white soap, and you just keep adding white colorant to try to get there, it's going to be very hard to do that. You're going to have to add a lot of white colorant, and pretty soon you get over that usage amount, and the soap batter just can't hold on to it. So what happens is, when you'll cut the bar, and after it cures and dries, you'll start to use it, and that colorant will just start leaching out and kind of run all down the sides of your shower and all over your soap dish and everywhere, and it's really a mess. So you do have to remember those rules: 1 teaspoon of colorant, 1 tablespoon of oil to mix it, and that will color 1 pound of soap. Titanium dioxide, that white colorant, is the biggest offender for people because they want to try to get their soaps to be super white, and the reality is a milk soap is not ever going to be a true white. You're going to just need to get okay with it being kind of a light cream color, and just know that that's better for the soap anyway, because nobody wants a soap that's painting the side of their shower white. So just remember that that's the rule, and that's the usage rule for how much colorant you can use in your soap batter, no matter what the color is. One other thing to remember with those colorants is to remember that the oxides, a little goes a long way, especially with the darker colors. So with the reds and the browns and the blacks, you don't need a lot of colorant to get the effect that you need in your soap batter. So the rule there is to try to use as little colorant as possible to get the effect that you're going for. And remember, where you might use a teaspoon of mica, you might only need a 1/4 teaspoon of an oxide, certainly half, like a half a teaspoon. So just be ready to use a lot less colorant if your colorant is an oxide, and still get the same effect you were looking for. So what about natural colorants? How do you do that? There is something you need to be aware of at the very beginning when you're dealing with natural colorants. And that is that there is no natural substance that's approved to be used as a colorant in the soap making process. Now, you can add things to soap and they may bring color in, but they can't be like, you can't use them as a colorant. They need to be added for other reasons. So that becomes a labeling issue. You need to make sure that if you add substances that happen to bring color into your soap, to not label them as a colorant. List them in your ingredients list and just leave them as they are. But don't label them as a colorant, because there aren't any that are allowed to be used that way. As long as you leave your ingredients list just with the list of what you put in the soap and don't venture off into the why you put it in, you'll be just fine with your labeling. Now, let's talk about the substances you can use in your soaps. Alkanet root is a really great colorant. It is interesting though, because depending on your different suppliers, it will become like tend toward different colors. This one is tending a little bit more toward purple, but I have seen alkanet root that very much goes gray toward black. So you'll just have to experiment with which one you like best and which one does the best for you. You can also use turmeric and alkanet root and get some interesting swirling in this one, but that's a couple different colors you can use together. There's also madder root, that's the reddish color in this one, and spirulina is the green. Again, just other things that bring color to your soap, even though we can't say that. Another one that is very, very common is activated charcoal. Activated charcoal is great to add to soap for its detoxification properties, but it also makes a really strong black soap as well. So some other things you can use. What did we talk about here? Oh, red sandalwood. Red sandalwood is a surprise because the cold process soap making, the saponification process, changes the color of the powder. Red sandalwood is very much a red powder. Turns purple when you get it into the soap batter. So just be ready for that surprise there. Indigo is also one you can use. And again, depending on where you get it from, it can be a blue, a gray, or even a greenish kind of color. So lots of these are available on Amazon, but remember that not every supplier supplies exactly the same thing. So you're going to need to be ready for some variety in the color shades as you purchase from different suppliers. There are also scents that you can use in your soap making that will bring color along with them. Anything with vanilla or almond in it is going to discolor, and that means it's not going to stay a cream color or a white color. It's going to become very, very brown. In this soap, we added color to the heart and to the little swirls around it, but we didn't add any scent because the rest of the soap is the scent discoloring into this lovely, dark, deep brown. So sometimes the scent you're using can bring some color with it. And what I would advise in that situation is to realize anything with vanilla, anything with almond is going to discolor, and just go with it. Just have this lovely dark brown soap. Don't try to fight it because it's kind of a losing battle. It'll take over any color that you try to put in it. So just be aware of that and be ready for that and just kind of work with it and let it happen and design your soap around the fact that that's going to happen. You're going to have this amazing rich color without even having to add anything else. The next question that comes right alongside, how did you get that color in your soap, is how do you get that fun swirl patterns in your soap? And one of the easiest ways to get a lovely swirl pattern that is not complicated is called an in the pot swirl. In this swirling technique, you're going to divide your soap batter amongst however many containers, how many ever different colors you want to have, and color the soap batter in each container. Then in a bigger container that will hold all of the soap batter you've got there, you're going to pour all the soap batter together. And one of the strategies there is to pour from different heights. So maybe you have a pour pitcher way up high so the soap batter punches through what's already in the bowl, and maybe you pour from kind of a low height so then that soap batter kind of stays on top a bit more. Pour from different heights, get all the soap batter back in the bucket. Be sure to scrape out each pitcher. We don't want to waste any soap batter. And then don't stir, but take that pitcher or that bucket and pour right into the mold. And the action of pouring the soap batter into the mold will create a lovely swirl pattern all by itself. It'll just do its own thing and create its own pattern. And when you cut the bars, you're going to see a nice, lovely swirl pattern, and you didn't need any special tools or anything else. It just happened automatically. This is the rewarding and creative outlet part of soap making. This is where you can really let your artistic flair shine. There are really not limits to what you can do with your soap making, and it's a lot of fun for me. One of the parts that I enjoy most is seeing what other people are doing with their soap making and then trying to figure out what they did and trying to replicate it with my own little my own interpretation on it as well. That's always just a lot of fun to try to figure out how they did what they did. But lots of people never get to the fun part. Lots of would-be soap makers have talked themselves out of trying soap making multiple times and possibly even for multiple years. They're stuck behind a roadblock in their mind that keeps them from moving forward with their soap making. It's the roadblock of either they don't feel like they know enough, or they're scared of the lie, or they just don't know what could possibly happen with this. They know it's some kind of chemistry. Maybe it's kind of like cooking, maybe it's not, but they don't know what to expect, and it just keeps them kind of frozen and stuck behind this roadblock. They're missing either the knowledge or maybe just the confidence to move forward and give it a try. What you need is someone to show you how to do this. Kind of like a good friend to come alongside and come in your kitchen and show you exactly how it's done. Being stuck is no fun, and you don't have to stay stuck in your soap making. Our goat milk soap making class is designed to help people just like you get over that hurdle, get past the roadblock. When you have all the details about the supplies and the equipment, and you've seen the process step by step, that you might find that that roadblock does not seem quite so formidable, and that your confidence doesn't seem quite so small. Lots of people say after taking the class that they feel like they have everything they need. They have enough confidence to give it a try, to take that next step, and to try making their first batch of goat milk soap. And you can be one of them. Click the link that's in the comments below this video to join our next class. It's only $27. It's not a huge investment. Use the training and the live Q&A at the end of the class to get all your soap making questions answered. Bring all the questions. Pepper me with questions. Let's have a conversation. Let's get you what you need to take that first step and make your first batch of goat milk soap. Think how much fun that would be, and think how proud you would be of yourself for having conquered all of that roadblock, that whatever's holding you back, and take that first step to make your first batch of soap. My goodness. There's a lot of soap making fun out there, and you can be part of it. Click the link, join our next class. I would love to see you there.